Hey, hello friends, welcome, namaste. Apologies for being a little late, just normal technical issues that Matt seems to incur getting on. Never mind, here we are. It is, I have no idea what date it is. It's 29th of June in the Cook Islands. I almost said in New Zealand. It's the 30th of June in New Zealand, and it's cold and miserable there. It's warm, sunny, and very pleasant here. So this is Chat with Matt, half an hour to talk about whatever might serve you. Some people have written in some stuff. We're going to go there to start with. If you're watching, please feel free to add any comments, questions, requests as we go. Looking for clarification or looking to argue, I don't mind, either or. I'm just trying to find my way onto here. Here we go. And here's my comments. So I guess I better start with talking about the poster that I popped up to, I have a feeling I've forgotten to do something, but maybe not. The poster that I popped on to advertise this session was one from May 2015, so it's over 6 years ago that I did this little labelled poster, which was a feat of technical genius at the time, where I managed to set my camera up that I was using. This was before I must have had a smartphone, but it was definitely before I had a phone with a decent camera on it. Yeah, I managed to set the camera up on a tripod and take two photos of the same couch with me sitting in different spot on the couch in a different state of being, one being labelled and the other one being free. If you haven't seen it, I will describe it. The one there I'm labelled, I have, well, maybe I could show you. Let's see if this is going to work. The one there I'm labelled, oh yeah, it works great. The one that I'm labelled, I've got post-it notes all over the face, and the other one I'm sitting up with I am that I am on my forehead, which of course was added in post-production. I managed to stitch the two photos together and was very, very proud of myself. So anyway, that's the post that I put on. So a lot of the questions and comments that have come in to discuss on this live stream are relating to their little meme poster that I posted way back before I really had a business, before I'd gone on my first telesummit. I was still working as a builder at this stage, 50 odd hours a week, traveling to work, doing all that boring stuff, and just doing a couple of sessions of light language on my weekends and evenings. That's where I was at that stage, but still I chose to step into being an inspiration, right? Choosing to share some light on the planet via Facebook at the time. And with that intent, things grew. So the reason I say that is not to think, wow, what a great guy Matt is to encourage you guys to follow your dreams and to share what you feel is worthy of sharing, despite the fact that you might not have a very big audience to start with, despite the fact that you might not feel that you have the validity that is gained through external forms of success, right? How many clients you have, how many people are following you, all of that idea of what success is that gives people the idea that they are now qualified to share their inspirations. Thank you, Sam. Speaking of the devil, someone who is stepping into doing exactly the same and has been very, very inspirational to watch over the last 6 months to a year. I can't remember exactly, but Samantha and others in this group are ramping up into doing that, right? Into being more and more visible, into choosing to take steps that feel risky at the time. By the way, they don't stop feeling risky. Every time I get on and do one of these, it feels a little risky. So, anywho, where am I going? I'm not sure. I got distracted by an email that just came in, but that's okay. Anywho's, so let's just read through some of this stuff and see where we wish to comment. Sam wrote in, this very same Sam, not a question, just sharing my thoughts. I love this topic and find myself inquiring into it lots. I'm sure, like most people in this group, I have been labelled a lot in my lifetime. As I develop more compassionate relationship with my sense of self, I have started to understand that labels make others around me feel safe. Rather than being a reflection on me, they tell me a lot about how others perceive the world. Their labels on me are no more of a threat to me than I am to them. I see labels and boxes imposed by others, thank you, as a, it's a rather good looking rooster, but needless to say, it's not great timing. Hey, Sister Christina. Yeah, they're still very active. It's 11 a.m. here, but they're still very active doing their thing. Labels and boxes by others as a container I choose to break out of in an empowered way, perhaps surprising people around me and helping them to expand their views. As we develop a more loving and compassionate relationship around our sense of self, the labels lose their stick and we become less and less aware of them anyway. Interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, so let's take a step back. This is a great lead into this whole topic of labels. And I am looking for a topic. I think I have sort of talked about labels before in one of my group calls as part of the Transformation and Empowerment Support Community. But I've got my topic call coming up for the start of July this weekend, and I still don't know which topic we're going into. So the cogs are turning as to whether this or some iteration on this is, I don't know where the chicken's going now, but it's running off. Chicken and the roosters, or rooster and the chickens, more to the point. So let's take a step back and talk a little bit about what labels are and why they're in existence. Labels are a very normal part of our mentality, our intellectual aspect of self, our mind component, making the world more understandable. We tend, because the world is reasonably complex and everyone is truly individual and every situation is unique, that's too much for us to understand. Like, it's not too much for us to understand that concept, but when we're walking through the world, if we took each and every situation as a unique situation and a unique experience, and every person and interaction as something amazing and wonderful and individual, then we wouldn't get much done in terms of productivity. Productivity, you know, producing and consuming things, has been made very right on this planet, and as we have tried to morph ourselves into achieving that rightness, no doubt the rooster's back, as we've chosen, hey Sister Teresa and Sister Jane, as we've chosen to, you know, mold ourselves into appeasing society and being productive in the world, we have had to use labels and boxes and containers and conclusions we draw about people and events and situations based on face value very quickly as a way of efficiently moving through the process of relating to others. So we have all of these sayings like people will never change, oh they're such and such, right? We go right down to, you know, we label people in all sorts of ways, right? Based on our perception of their identity and their role in the world, and their, you know, whether we're labeling people as Librans and Scorpions and you know, different star signs, you know, to help us choose to understand them in a simplified way, right? Of course, we can't categorize our whole population, 7 billion or 7.5 billion people, into 12 different categories based on their star sign, and yet some people try to. Right, and I'm not making that wrong, you know, but you know, people tend to, you know, right down to the very simplistic dichotomies of man and woman, right? People believe that men are like this and women are like that. 50% of the population is like this, and we can put them in this category because they're of this gender. Of course, that's ridiculous, and yet we still tend to do it to a degree. Some of us more than others. It's a way of simplifying the world to our logical mind so that we can function to a degree, right? We call it functionality, but it's function to the degree that the external world wants us to function, which is just to get on with it, right? Just to keep doing our job, just to keep earning money so that we can spend money. And so this is why labels have got so intense. And I believe that mentality is falling away, right? That mentality is losing its foundation as we move out of this sort of shadow masculine, authoritarian, controlling way, this very consumer-driven way of being controlled and doing the world, and into a more curious, compassionate, loving, intuitive, collaborative way of doing the world, where we are recognizing people's individuality, and not just recognizing it, but appreciating it for what it is, appreciating the nuances, appreciating the diversity that people bring. We're appreciating the complexity of human relationships while allowing it, in my mind, to become rather simplified in different ways. Rather than simplified in I understand it, we're allowing it to become more simple in I operate from this foundation, right? I operate from a foundation of not needing to understand. That in itself, oh my God, now a lawnmower has turned up next door. They do need to mow their lawns because they have got quite long. But anyway, not great timing, Mr. Lawnmower Man. He's on a little ride-on. It's quite a big paddock. Anywho, so the world, in some ways, we're looking to appreciate the simplicity. I've been talking about that quite a bit recently, in that, you know, it's simple to just work from a loving foundation with the process of acceptance, right? That's the simplification. Allowing the complexity that each and every person is an individual beyond their labels. Each and every person is more complex than we can hope to understand with our mental faculty, which at first is concerning, because we think we need to understand things. This is why labels have become so popular, because we think we need to understand things in order to stay safe, right? It all comes down to safety. So if we can apply some quick rules through a cursory glance at someone and find the appropriate label and put that label on them, then we know how to deal with them. You know, one of the labels might be safe or dangerous, and we come to that conclusion quite quickly with people, right? Based on external factors that we've learned to recognize as a survival technique, right? So again, it's not wrong to be able to pick up cues that help us decide whether someone is in this moment safe to be around or not. That's a valid survival technique. I'm not saying that we should get rid of that, but whether we need to apply that label to the person forevermore as either safe or dangerous, that's the issue, right? And so we tend to use cursory measures to apply these labels to people, right? Whatever the label might be. And of course it goes a lot beyond just either safe or dangerous into all sorts of nuances that come with all sorts of conclusions around how we're going to treat them moving forward and how we expect them to treat us moving forward. So understanding why people label you and understand why you are tempted to label others. We all are doing it, right? We're all labeling others, right? I'm labeling that guy with the lawnmower as annoying right now, because I perceive that the noise that I'm having to compete with is annoying. It's meaning that I'm feeling a little on edge because I want to have the best experience for you. So it's a quick categorization that has immediately sprung to mind. Can I move beyond it? Of course I can. Am I choosing to? Well, yet to be seen whether I can move beyond that label of the situation and the person who has just created the situation. Of course, did that person actually create the situation, or is he doing what he's been instructed to do by someone else? Did someone else tell him to go and mow the lawn right now on that paddock, right? It's more complicated than that, but at the moment my mind just wants to look at the person riding the mower and label them as the blame point, right? This is very normal human behavior that we all get lured into because society has trained us. He's smiling, by the way. He's having a good time. He's happy in his work. So that's great, right? I may have to move inside. Mind like water, open and curious, is something that goes through my mind a lot, and then I can feel more about someone, something, instead of just what I think. Yeah, so just what I think is the initial labeling that we apply, right? The conditioning that we fall into so very, very easily, right? We fall into this conditioned response because it's habitual, and habits are, I'm glad you can hear us just fine. Thank you for letting me know, Teresa, so maybe I don't need to yell as loudly. I've got my little mic pinned to my shirt because I thought it was a bit windy to start with, and phones hate the wind. And I don't like putting the fluffy on because then I can't see the whole screen, and then it just gets harder and harder from there. So the point is, you know, as Sister M pointed out, oh my God, there's 2 lawnmowers. Oh, they are going to get through it quickly. They're funny because they're big boys too, big boys, and they love bright colours. So big boys with bright coloured t-shirts. I was going to try and show you, but they're not going to get in the photo. On their ride-on mowers, quickly knocking down. It is a vacant paddock, right? So, but the thing is, here on the Cook Islands, they take great pride, and it's very much a social norm to keep all of the grounds looking very good. So I know that this paddock is owned by a family, and that they will not let it get too messy because that would bring a bad name to them in this society. So they're very, very onto it. All the yards here look immaculate. It's very clean. There's no rubbish anywhere on the streets or blowing around. If anyone sees a bit of rubbish, they stop and pick it up. It's quite refreshing that way. Because I've been in other, warm tropical places throughout Asia, as an example, where that doesn't happen and rubbish tends to accumulate everywhere, and it's rather disturbing to our minds. Again, labels, judgments, observations. Observations can quickly turn into labels and judgments. It's an interesting thing. So yeah, can we allow our mind to stay like water? Can we allow ourselves to maintain curiosity? Can we stay aware and observant without allowing ourselves to become judgmental and conclusory? Conclusory, is that a word? Drawing conclusion, which is basically what it means when we put a label on something. Yep, you're all good sound-wise. I slept deeper than ever after our session. Awesome. My body is still feeling really good too. Very awesome to hear, Sister Emily. Not much twist at all. Perfect. Perfect. Really, really good. So I'm very happy that you are progressing through your process, and it hasn't intensified the discomfort, which sometimes it does. So I wouldn't have been surprised if you had said, oh, I'm feeling really twisted up today. I would have gone, great, that's coming up to release. But the fact that you are not feeling all twisted up is great, because you've managed to get past a certain threshold where you can now release this in a more comfortable way. I've been quite busy this morning. I've already taught an hour of yoga and a relaxation before getting on this call. So I've been doing a bit of talking. I've got another call coming up soonish too, as part of the Bright Light Client Attraction process. So where am I going? Labels. I know I've probably got some more questions and comments here that I probably should get back to on my screen, but because the question, interested to hear your thoughts. So that's interesting. I've lost the cursor from my computer. Anyway, not quite sure what to do about that. Sorry, just dealing with a technical issue here, as my computer is telling me about a wireless mouse that doesn't exist. Okay, great. It's back. I was just trying to hook onto a wireless mouse that doesn't exist. So the question was, interested to hear your thoughts on this idea of developing a more loving and compassionate relationship around our sense of self. Those labels lose their stick. So this is exactly right. Others can only judge us. I'm going to read that in a sec, Christina. Others can only judge us to the point that we judge ourselves, right? Other people applying labels to us only hurts and limits us to the extent that we are willing to own the label that they stick on us. Because the truth is, others will always be labeling us. Always. To some degree. And most of the time we're unaware of it, but sometimes we are aware of it. Obviously, if we're unaware of it, it doesn't influence our behavior at all. When we become aware that others have put a label on us, it tends to affect our behavior, because now either we own the label and say, yeah, that's right, I am like that, or we renounce the label and fight back against it and say, no, they've got it wrong, I'm not like that. As we grow, we may get to a point where we're trying to avoid labels that we use in our life, and we resent the fact that they are using labels to categorize us, and we fight back based on the fact that they've labeled us, whether we like the label or not. But we tend to only do that when we don't like the label, let's be fair. If they're labeling us as spiritual, if they're labeling us as enlightened, if they're labeling us as something else that we perceive successful, then we tend not to get too upset about the labeling. But if they're labeling us as weird, or if they're labeling us as stupid, if they're labeling us as a conspiracy theorist, if they're labeling us as a danger to the population, then we tend to resent it, and we tend to want to prove them wrong, and we tend to want to make them wrong for engaging in that behavior to start with. So as we develop a more compassionate relationship with ourselves, as we develop more authentic confidence, we simply don't care. As Sam wrote, the labels lose their stick, right? They don't affect us so much. Being aware that someone's labeled you is an empowered place to be, because if you know that someone's labeled you, then you've pretty much got a clue as to how they're going to treat you moving forward, which allows you to be a little bit more proactive in how you show up around them, right? Now, that can be good and it can be bad. Depends on whether you are showing up around them from a loving state to help them soften around their labels and to help you stay strong in the truth of who you be and authentic, or whether you're just trying to prove them wrong, and so you show up deliberately trying to destabilize the labeling process, not out of love for them, but out of fear of them labeling you, right? Out of a sense of being right, a righteous stance to make them, because they labeled you, as a wrongness, and wanting to prove that labeling is not right because they've labeled you in a way that you don't appreciate. Christina wrote, "My brother labelled me as stupid, trainee, lunatic, witch until I stopped being a trainee. At the time, I either fought against it or tried to prove it. Neither led to happiness or empowerment within myself." Exactly, right? The best way to destabilize someone who is labeling you is just to simply ignore it. To allow their labels not to affect you, because if they don't get any feedback that their labels are actually holding true, and one of the ways that people prove that their labels are true is if you deny it, right? As soon as someone denies the label that they've been given, it basically verifies that the label has some charge, and therefore it is basically on a level holds some truth, right? Because the truth is, if the label doesn't affect you at all, then the label doesn't mean anything to you and you're not owning the label. If you're affected in any way by the label, there is some truth to the label, at least from your perspective, and that's all that matters, right? Because obviously there is no absolute in any label. Someone can label you something and someone can label you the exact opposite. Which one of those people are right? They're both right or they're both wrong from their perspective, right? Which one do you align with is what is shaping your world, right? So if you are fighting against something, you would only be fighting against that because you thought that there was some truth to it, and if there was truth to it, it was somehow detrimental, somehow dangerous, somehow not a good thing, right? If you're not concerned about the labels that they apply to you, then there's no problem in them labeling you, right? Because it doesn't affect you, and you don't need to fight against it. yeah, I was just going to scroll up here and see the comment that Christina wrote before. Yeah, maybe there was a line before that. Okay. Yeah, true, Em. Yeah, Thailand and Egypt both. I haven't been to Egypt. Yeah. It's true. Alright, I've lost the plot here. But anyway, Christina wrote, I know there have been moments in my life when giving a label to a situation kept me safe. It's just being careful that the label does not become a judgment on all similar situations. Yeah, so when does an awareness of a situation become a label that's applied to a situation? This is the point, right? So you can be aware that something or someone is dangerous or non-beneficial. Is that what we really call judgmental? Is that really what we call labeling something? You know, I've seen a lot of people disempower their own intuitive knowing around this desire to become non-judgmental. It's crazy, right? It's counter-evolutionary. It's not very good survival technique to make awareness wrong. If you're aware that something or someone is dangerous, then you should give it a wide berth, right? Or you should take definite action to avoid a bad thing happening to you, right? So the point is, are you labeling something on a cursory glance at it and a pre-programmed belief that things that look a certain way are a certain way, right? That's not great. But are you intuitively knowing that the uniqueness of this experience is a certain way and you're willing to call it as such, right? That's empowered. So it may fit a stereotype or it may not, right? So you might see someone who is stereotypically easily labeled as dangerous and you feel into it and you go, you know what, that person's dangerous right now. Are you being judgmental, or should you walk up to them and turn the other cheek and allow yourself to get into danger, right? Not clever. Not clever to try and buck the system to try and prove that judgments are wrong. We have to honour what we know in our heart. This other end of this token, we can see people who are, you know, fit the stereotype of being dangerous or bad or wrong or whatever it might be, and we can go, you know what, I can feel the purity in their heart. I know in this circumstance that person doesn't deserve that label, and we can go and break down those systems in the appropriate time and treat them as the individual that they are. The point is to be clever about this, to be sensible, right? Responsible with how you use your intuitive knowing, not to go out there to try and destroy the stereotypes for the sake of destroying the stereotypes, but to rather follow your heart into intuitive actions, right? Into being willing to move beyond the labels, but not having to move beyond the labels, right? Because there's a reason there are stereotypes, because of predominant behavioural patterns. Now, of course, the labels perpetuate the ongoingness of that behavioural pattern. That is true, right? Kids who get labelled as ADHD and as a disruption tend to become more disruptive because that's the way they've been labelled. That's what's expected of them. How do we break that down? It's important that we're willing to notice if a child is displaying behavioural issues, that we work with that in mind, right? We don't forego the understanding that habitually or predominantly this child has been disruptive, because it's helpful for us to modify our behaviour to how we interact with them, knowing that they have a history and knowing that they're already carrying a label. So it's not that we ignore the label, it's that we work with the label in an empowered way to help that situation heal, right? To help that situation grow, as long as it doesn't create sacrifice on ourselves. We're not here to throw ourselves under the bus to try and stop the bus rolling down the hill, because we're not a great way of stopping a bus rolling down the hill, right? Our body is not a great wheel chock. So it's best not to use our body in that way, because, you know, we only get one shot at that. And either way, it's not going to turn out well, generally, for us. So sacrificing ourselves isn't, you know, smart. Working into, that's interesting. That's happened again on my computer just as I was getting to the point where I'm thinking I really should scroll down and see the rest of the questions, because I have sort of chewed up my half hour. Obviously this is a big topic, and I could talk for a long time about labels and how we deal with them, and about expectations and how we deal with those. And it's like the boys have just about finished mowing the lawn, and so it must be about time to come to an end. Oh good, I've finished the end of my thing. Whatever. Okay, I'm going to skip this question, Christina, because I think it was more. Yeah, your comment's definitely great, right? You wrote, "I'm Christina, no labels." So Michelle wrote in, and I haven't answered this because this is the other question that was sort of here. Hi Matt, question: how do I stay in my love light vibration when I live with people that cause chaos and negative vibes? This is a great question, right? At this time I'm providing a place for my 18-year-old granddaughter and her 8-month-old baby girl to live. To make a long story short, with providing them a place to live comes a lot of chaotic energy and chaotic negative energy. I know I let them into my life to help them move forward, but I'm trying to stay in my place of love life. But some days I find myself affected by the energy of what's going on with them. How can I stay up in my love light energy through these times? Right, the best way to stay up in your love light is not to need to stay up in your love light, right? The point is allowing that chaotic energy into your life is always going to have an influence on you, and that influence is not necessarily bad or wrong or detrimental. What's creating you a lot of suffering is this idea that you should always be up in your love and your light and your capacity to be unconditional and compassionate. If you're living with teenagers in your house, as I am, well I'm not right now because we've escaped for 3 months, but there's teenagers in my house traditionally, and that does come with a lot of chaos. They're inviting their friends in, they're getting up to all sorts of mischief and stuff, and there's problems and issues that happen. You've got a baby as well as an 18-year-old. It's bad enough just with 18, 19-year-olds and their girlfriends and their friends and all the rest of them that come and go. I can imagine with a baby added in, that's an extra layer of chaos. The way to move forward is to appreciate each situation for what it offers you. And while it might be difficult to feel that you are successful in maintaining your state of being, allow yourself to be compassionate, that it's okay to not always be peaceful, to not always be centered, to not always be able to be loving and compassionate when others are in your space. You have to be willing to hold your boundaries. You are going to get emotional and say things and act in certain ways, and it is going to be annoying that they're in your space. Your job is to stay aware of your overriding intent. You're choosing to help them because it feels good and right for you to help them. If at some point it doesn't feel good and right and beneficial for all concerned for you to be helping them with allowing them to stay in your house, and you're going to have to cross that boundary, that situation when it comes, and speak your truth and help them find alternate living arrangements. But with them staying there, your job is to be compassionate with yourself in the fact that you're not always going to be the picture of the Zen Buddhist master as you deal with that situation. But the truth is that we're not here on the planet to be peaceful and loving, peace, love and mung beans all of the time. It can be it's coming from a very loving foundation that you are being triggered by this situation. Love is what the foundation is. Allow yourself to appreciate that they're in your house because you love them, and that is the loving act. And while it might be hard for you, and while it might be hard for you to feel love all of the time, or to feel peaceful, or to allow your light to shine out bright when you're feeling quite contracted and stressed and frustrated with the various antics that are going on in your house, as you know, said 18-year-old dealing with baby, and you know, no doubt friends and boyfriends and whatnot coming and going. that chaos is your opportunity. The more that you can lovingly embrace the opportunity to move through the chaos, even though it doesn't look like you are doing it well, the better off you're going to be. So cut yourself some slack. Be an allowance that it's a difficult path for someone at your age. This is not your child, this is your grandchild with your great-grandchild, if I got that right. So that's a lot of generational gap there, and this obviously is not going to be easy for you. So be an allowance of that and be appreciative of what you are choosing to step forward through for exactly the right reasons, right? It's not easy. So be an allowance that it's not easy. This is the point. Sam wrote, chaos births a lot of opportunities. This is the truth, right? This is going to be triggering stuff from deep within you that's better out than in. So be an allowance that that's not going to be a comfortable process, and it's not necessary that you're going to progress through it gracefully. You know, it's not possible that you maintain grace in this experience, at least not for the majority of it. So, but that doesn't make it wrong. That doesn't make it wrong. So, yeah, it'd be more comfortable if she wasn't there, but would it be better? That's the point. That's the point. And it's only you can answer that. I'm not here to say that you should just grin and bear it. If it's really too much for you and it's pushing you too far, then maybe you need to work out how to rectify that. But if you do feel on a level comfortable with the current situations, even though you would rather be more loving and full of light, then you're just going to have to find compassion with yourself and move through it and trust that you are benefiting in many, many ways through that experience and that situation. Awesome. I'm glad I managed to get there with that. I'd love to know why. I think I need to restart my computer before I go to my next call because I've lost my cursor again. Awesome. Okay, friends, I've gone well over time just for a change. Much, much love to you all. I will be back next week at the same time, same place. For those of you in the Mantara Transformation Empowerment Support community, we do have our topic call this weekend, Saturday, early afternoon in the more western side of America, later afternoon in the eastern side, evening for the UK, and night for Europe. It'll be Sunday morning in New Zealand. That call's coming up. I still don't know the topic, but perhaps something is going to come to me in the next day or two, and I'll write an email and let you guys know what the topic is. Other than that, of course, we will do our Drops of Light Friday, Saturday before that, and we'll have our meditation Monday, Tuesday, and we'll be back next Wednesday with Chat with Matt yet again. So much, much love to you all, my friends. Stay safe, and at the same time, stay relaxed. And again, I will say, relaxing is not just lying in a hammock, and I can say that because, where's that hammock? It's hard to see. There's the kayak. Hammock is over there somewhere. No, it's over there somewhere. Yeah, you might be able to see it. Yeah, it's not just lying in a hammock, although you can relax lying in a hammock. Relaxation is choosing not to be stressed with whatever situation you are in. And in choosing not to be stressed, again, stressed is not yes or no. We are all stressed to a level, and we can all be more stressed. And we can all be less stressed. So the point is to relax out of a degree of stress, right? To let go of a degree of tension, to find more faith and more trust in your life so that you can let go of some tension physically, mentally, emotionally, and you will find that life flows more easily the less tension you are carrying. Much love to you all. Many blessings. Bye for now. Namaste.